All right, everybody, welcome to the Sunday night extravaganza Homestead from Scratch show. I'm Greg Dowd. I'm joined by John Tejan. So far tonight, we might have Logan pop in on us, but we're gonna kick this off tonight, and we're gonna be talking about cultivating a culture of abundance, and specifically in the neighborhood where you're at, and building relationships with the people around you. So, um, but first off, John, how's everything going? How's your week been treating you? You had a good
Good,
week.
got a lot done. Cows are happy. Still plenty of grass for them to eat. Holding up good. Happy with that. Just getting. I actually harvested some garlic this week, so it's the first time doing it. So we'll see. With For those that aren't aware, and are interested, one of the most important part about onions and garlic is yeah, growing it, but for it to be viable long term or for some sort of storage, you've got to cure it properly before you're able to store it. So that just means hanging it up and in a garage, and get some ventilation on it, some circulation, and just let it dry out naturally, and that's all curing is. Really, it's just a drying process. The outside, when you buy an onion at the store, it's got that, all those, papery skin. Well, that's not what it looks like when you pull it out of the ground. That only happens after it's cured for a while. So but anyway, I've been doing that, and I'm real interested.
Well, Logan, I think you're up, but you got something with your mic or something going on. You got
Yeah.
some, you
Um,
got some.
yeah, can y'all hear me?
Yeah,
Is
you
it
got.
feedback or does it sound like a horse is galloping?
Sounds like something's going on in the background there.
Yeah, I'm on a kind of a rough road. We're actually coming down from Tennessee. I thought we were going to make it back earlier today, but we've been up getting our community on. So when I'm not talking, I'll keep my mic muted.
All right, cool. Sounds good, man. So yeah, we're you were talking about, some of the things, getting your garlic going.
Yep. Yep.
And
Getting that
and
stored up. So it'll be interested to see how it goes, and then you save some to plant next year. So it's a kind of a repeating crop. So hopefully you only have to buy it once, and then you just keep replanting it every year, out of your what you hold back for seed. So it's all a learning process for me. So I'm looking forward to figuring it out. Anybody out there and want to put a comment out there about any tips on that? I'd be glad to listen.
yeah. So yeah, I guess you just kind of let it hang and dry for a little while, and then store it in a cool place somewhere.
Keep
Sweet.
the
So
keep the critters away from it, but I don't know if they're that interested in garlic, so that might not be a problem.
yeah. Um. So yeah. This week I just got back from getting down to my property, and I'm gonna need to take a weekend down there and do a bunch of landscaping. Everything has grown up pretty good, and some of those recent storms looked like they knocked down some pretty large limbs and kind of tossed them from one of the trees on the property to pretty far away. So it looked like it got kind of hairy down there, but the cabin looks like it's intact, and it's, thank God, that it didn't get any damage or anything like that. But it looked like it got a little nasty down there for a little bit. But I was just there. I just got back from that, and then we're working on getting an area cleaned up so that we can do the deep bedding for chickens and get some egg layers back and get a little bit better setup for the chickens so that we can fight off the predators that we have around here that have been giving us so many problems. Logan, what's been going on with you, man? Do you want to interject?
Yeah, as long as I'm talking, does my mic sound okay?
Yeah, as long as you're talking, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I figured. Well, that's no problem because I've got plenty to say always. Yeah, so we've been getting a lot of stuff done. We've got ducks still hatching. Doing a whole lot of processing. I mean, we have been not necessarily the best time to process animals, especially when it comes to pigs. But I've got some good friends that are trying to go on a belated honeymoon, and we're trying to get all their pigs gone. So we've got that. Looking at doing sheep here soon. And these are all just things like these are people that I know that are in a sticky situation trying to get stuff done. And so we've been super busy with that and just trying to beat the rain. We're coming down from Tennessee right now. We actually went up and visited Stiletto Farm and had lunch out there. And so, well, I guess kind of Lupper. So we've been 90 to nothing, but it's all been good stuff and stuff we like to do. I have a question for you. Did you get a chance to look at the willows while you were out there?
I did, and I took a video of how that living fence is going, and the willows are looking really healthy. And so all those trees that we planted, there were a few that were the cuttings off the willow trees that we stuck in the ground that didn't make it. But all the larger trees and most of the cuttings are thriving and doing well. So that all looked good.
Sweet.
All right. So tonight we wanted to talk about, we had our guests at our local meeting this week, Francine from Stiletto Farms, that I will be interviewing her in the next couple weeks to have her on as a guest for my interview podcast. And then I've also got Nicole Sauce coming on. I have her scheduled. And then a couple more people that I'm working on right now, trying to get the interviews cranked up again. But yeah, she came to our meeting and was talking about some of the stuff that she's doing around her farm and around her neighborhood. That was really inspiring on how she's building relationships with the folks around her as a transplant from California and coming into rural Tennessee. So some of the stuff that she shared with us was really cool about how she's building relationships with the folks around her and kind of sharing in the abundance. And I guess you may call it like a gift economy, something like that, where she takes whatever is an abundant part of her farm and drops it on her neighbor's doorsteps. And she's really kind of become a focal point of the community, it sounds like. So yeah, whoever wants to maybe make a comment on that and, talk about your thoughts on building these good relationships with the people around you.
Yeah, I really needed to hear what she had to say when because sometimes you get locked into your own thing and you're not looking for advice or guidance on something, but sometimes it just what is the when the student's ready, the master will appear, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of what happened to me. And one of the things I got, and she's very generous and she's a genuine person. So, when somebody has something to say and you can tell they have a good heart and that their intentions are in the right direction, they automatically have your attention. And it doesn't even matter what it's about. It's like, I'm going to listen to this person. I might not agree or believe or accept everything they have to say, or make some big changes, but you're going to at least listen. And that's what I did with her. And, I had to examine myself, and I kind of look at it this way. We especially in communities like ours, which there's communities like this all over the place, some very, some small 3 or 4 or 5 person groups, some large, national organizations, whatever it might be, people that follow Jack Spirko, or, there's these communities of people that we're all kind of like-minded. Unfortunately, because of maybe the media that's presented it, the way, the medium in which it is presented to us on social media and video and whatever, YouTube, however it might be, we tend to focus on that. And unfortunately, if you think of concentric circles and you're at the middle, and you're at the middle, and then your family's here.
You're talking like a Venn diagram?
Well, no, it's all concentric. It just continues to grow. Unfortunately, in a homestead, survivalist, permaculture, agorist mindset, we spend way too much time on those outside rings, right? Those things that are going to end the world or end democracy or ruin the monetary system, or where we focus on that outer ring, and we to the exclusion sometimes of those other parts of the circle, right? Ourselves, our family, our neighbor, our community, whatever it might be. And that's really what I kind of took from it, is I've been focusing a little bit too much out here, and I need to get back into the things that are literally within arm's reach of me to make that better, and all the way to even to myself, and the way I see things, and my philosophy and how I approach things has to be a little bit better managed, I guess. One of those things is, and it's talked about all the time, is, make sure that the social media you consume is as positive as you can make it, because unfortunately a large portion of it is very negative, right? That doomerism, that we get stuck in that trap, and then that just makes us think negative about a lot of other things. And unfortunately, that those concentric circles, those inner circles of your family and your community, kind of, our minds just racing with all these other things, and we don't take care of the things we should, and because, the term in permaculture is it's like, well, it all depends on the context. And that really is true when it comes to where you live physically, the people physically. That's your context. Your context isn't the federal government and laws that they're passing or rights that they're taking away. That's not necessarily, that's a really abstracted view of the world, but what you can see and touch close to you really has to become much more important. At least that's the way I'm seeing it.
Yeah, Logan, do you have some thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with John. There's a tendency to get a little too focused on things that really you don't have any control over. And, this makes a lot of people upset. But as much as people, like politics, they like voting and stuff, really when it comes to the way a country or a county is going to go, you have very, very, very minimal control or influence on any of that. And the biggest thing that you have influence on is what you do with your life and the influence that you have on the people around you that are closest to you. And it's really easy to get caught up in the whole, well, I'm going to set up my stuff to where, when the world ends, we're going to be okay. When a lot of people are not focusing on step one, which is I'm going to get independent enough and have enough savings to where if I lost my sources of income, I'm going to be all right. or if there were a death in the family, or there was a tragedy, whatever. Or I'm going to have enough to where if my neighbor has hard times, I'm going to be able to help them. And just kind of going back a little bit to talk about the gift economy thing. I am a huge fan of gift economies. Now, I'm also a big capitalist, but I think that gift economies, when you have givers that are around you, and it's real easy to figure out who the givers are, because anytime you give a giver something, they feel this just obligation to do something for you or give something to you, not as like, well, I got to make sure I don't owe anybody anything, but as a, hey, something was done that was really nice for me, and I want to reciprocate that to that person. And I think that all of us, even though it is hard sometimes, because not all your neighbors are going to be on the same page as you, not all your family is going to be on the same page as you. So it's good to have communities like what we're talking about, like the three of us getting on here. We're all like-minded, and we're all trying to do kind of the same things, but we also have a lot of distance in between us. And trying to find the people that are on the same page as you, or is it at least in the same book. They don't necessarily have to be on the same page. At least if they're in the same book, finding those people that are local and creating relationships with them is the way to go. I'm not the best at it. I do create relations with people around me. I do a lot of barter and a lot of gift economy like stuff. Most of it I can't mention. It's not immoral, but it is illegal. And people think that illegal is like, oh, you're selling drugs or you're dealing arms or whatever. But heck, raw milk's illegal in most places. And so there's a lot of say is if you're wanting to do homesteading like what we're talking about, and you're wanting to have good, clean food, really the only way to do it is to be friends with your neighbors. Because now we can get beef from John and necessarily selling anything illegal, but there are a lot of other things that have regulations on them that if you don't have somebody that you know and trust, you can't get those items unless you're willing to risk having a Karen call on you and have the police come and cause a big old stink. So it is super important, and I think we could all focus on that a lot more. Just reaching out to your neighbors, finding people a little more local to you, and like I said, just as long as they're in the same book. If you've got what is it? It wasn't Joel Salatin that said it, but he quotes it. He says you can be a nudist or you can be a Buddhist, but you can't be a nudist Buddhist. So maybe you are a nudist Buddhist, but you just find some friends that are nudists. Maybe they're not Buddhists, but at least they're nudists.
Oh, I haven't heard that one before, but that's a pretty good one.
Good point. Good point.
Yeah. So I'll give my angle on this. I think, especially in my mindset, I'm very much in the books, I guess, a lot, and looking individually a lot sometimes, and it was a struggle for me in the beginning to even think about the idea of getting around other people and finding other people. So for the longest time for me, it was like personally just being on an island, and online community was about the only thing I had. And since starting to get together with other like-minded people, I've realized that all those years spent just on my own and just ruminating and kind of staying in my own head with a lot of these thoughts was maybe more detrimental. But I do think it is important to, I might be contradicting myself, but I do think it is important to have some solitude in your life to where you can reflect on some things and maybe be able to find your purpose in your direction. So I do think it's important to have some solitude, but I do think it is also important to build relationships, like good relationships with other people. So, uh, and in that way, when Francine was talking about how cultivating those relationships in and around her community, and how some people were not on board with all the healthy stuff, right? She was talking about how some of her neighbors are talking about, like, I'm not into any of that healthy stuff or whatever, and kind of poo-pooing the idea. But just by being a light and kind of being an example for the other folks in your community, and starting up some kind of relationship with the people around you. I think it used to be that way a lot in the US, but it's like you go outside on most days and most people are in their houses. They're never leaving. They're never getting outside to, people having, kind of block parties and whatever, barbecues together, or some kind of thing that's connecting you to each other. It's very much like we're all in our own little worlds.
You know what ruined that, Greg? And that what would change that?
What?
Air conditioning.
You're right, man. Because if you're in a stuffy old house and it's hot as hell,
you're gonna be on your front porch.
Be in that house. You want to be in your porch or something. Yeah, that's right. I don't even think it would be possible in the South if you didn't have air conditioning to be inside all day. You would have to be out on your porch or something. Yeah.
I don't want to divert too much from this, but I mean, when I went to the Hermitage up in Nashville, Andrew Jackson's, home that he built there in Hermitage, Tennessee, and you're touring that and you're just going, what did they do? They didn't have air conditioning because, it's just hot and humid, and they wore all those heavy clothes. And I'm like, number one, those people must have smelled awful. And number two, that had to have been really uncomfortable. And it's like, daggum, man. That's when you had to have a swimming hole, because that was the only way you could survive, But yeah, it's amazing what air conditioning. But it does drive people in. It does drive people inside because they've grown up with air conditioning their whole life, so they can't survive sitting on the front porch when it's 85 degrees and 90% humidity. It's awful. It is. I mean, it's awful for me. But I mean, if everybody's sitting on their porch and walking down the street, hey Bob, what's going on?
What's going on, man? And strike up a conversation. Come join me for a glass of tea or
glass of lemonade or tea.
Lemonade or something like that.
Yeah. So you're right. You're challenged to meet people literally face to face sometimes, and you have to
you have to be that person that makes the effort to start something up, I think.
Yeah. I mean, like, walk around your neighborhood until you see somebody outside and like, hey. I mean, I don't do that much. It's
not trying to be a weirdo. Just
who's that weirdo walking around in the heat of the day, waving at everybody? But
that would probably be. I mean, we do have in my parents' neighborhood, we do have several people that go out and have started to go on walks and stuff like that. Yeah. So that's cool to see.
But that's what Francine was kind of saying, when she first moved there. She was that weirdo in her neighborhood. People are like, hi, what are you doing?
Yeah.
What are you growing over there?
Why are you outside?
Why are you wearing high heels doing your gardening? I don't understand.
Yeah. And also I think, go ahead, Logan.
Oh, my little mic gives it away now when I'm going to say something. I was just going to say there's a part in You Can Farm that talks about community, and it talks, Joel Salatin mentions that he who wants friends must present himself friendly. And so if you're wanting to have a community or a close-knit neighborhood, you can't expect other people to make the first move. It's just like if you want to have a partner, if you're going to have to pick up chicks, you can't go over there and sit and just wait for all the girls to come and talk to you. You know, you've got to get out there and you've got to talk to people. You've got to be friendly. One good thing, I mean, especially when you've got an overabundance of something, kind of like what Francine was talking about, it's really easy to go over to somebody's house and be like, hey, look, you know, I'm your neighbor. We planted way too many zucchinis and this stuff's just going to ruin. Would you like some? Like, that's a really easy way to break ice and get somebody to interact with you, and it could possibly become something more. I know that when we bought our property, you know, I introduced myself to some of the neighbors, and if you go in and you just have a servant's heart of, you know, hey, is there anything that I can do for you? People, you become endeared to people really fast, and people, you know, become your friends really fast. And we've had neighbors that we didn't know long at all, but we probably knew them better than the place where I grew up, as far as some of the neighbors goes. And it's all about reaching out. You have to be the one. You cannot depend on everybody else. You know, you can't move into an area and be like, well, people aren't very friendly here. Nobody's brought me a casserole yet. You've got to get out and you've got to be the one serving the community if you want one.
Well, you know, that's really true, Logan. But, you know, I'm thinking, you know, as the senior citizen on the panel, is unfortunately nowadays people, and I don't take this lightly, and I'm not mocking anybody, but people sometimes have to learn how to make friends. Their whole lives are online and they don't know how to make friends. They don't know the social clues. They lack a sense of humor. They have lack a sense of generosity because they're online all the time. And it's like, it's scary, you know. I mean, I don't have to go into the cultural problems of young men meeting women nowadays, because they do it online and they don't know how to act in public, and you know, they're just weird. You know, but people, I mean, this is something that young people have to actually learn how to make friends. And I mean, I know that sounds strange, you know. You can make friends at school.
It's not strange. Look, I will not get on a soapbox, but I'm just going to tell y'all one quick little story here. There's a guy, he's probably, I don't know, 2 or 3 years older than I am. And he had called me on the phone, and I can't remember what it was about, but he called me about something. And oh my Lord, I had to carry the whole conversation. He called me, and then like at the end of what it was that he needed to call me about, we just sat there and did. Was that all? He was like, yep. And I was like, all right, man, we'll see you around. And I had to end the phone conversation. Like, the guy didn't know how to talk on the phone. And he, you know, I think about to be like 32 years. So the guy's probably 35, you know, and it's just like, didn't know how to end a phone conversation. So people, they're so detached from, like you said, John, from getting out, making friends, having real interactions. Communication through the internet is wonderful. I am so grateful that we have it, because I mean, I wouldn't have the wife and family that I do now if it wasn't for technology. But at the same time, we can't use it as a crutch. It needs to be a tool.
I mean, I totally agree, and I know what you're talking about, John. I mean, I find myself in similar kind of a thing, getting too used to being online for several years. I was like in my own little world with just being online most of the time. I had, you know, maybe 2 or 3 close friends around me, and maybe not even that sometimes, just being on my own. And all I had was just this screen to connect
Right.
with people.
Right.
And yeah, I did really kind of lose a lot of my ability to have conversations, I think, and get out, and maybe, I was becoming more isolated from people around me. And
Right.
at
Well,
one point I felt that, and decided to, like, hey, I gotta change some stuff up, man. Like, because this isn't the life I want to live,
and it's even, and my experience in the business world, and I've seen the change that technology's had in the business world, but it's like nobody picks up the phone call and calls somebody. They send them an email, a text, hop in a chat room or something. But there's people, employees, unless it's their job to talk on the phone, they don't want to pick up the phone and call somebody. I'll just send them an email. I'll send them a text message. I'll hop in a chat room with them, but they don't want to pick up the phone and, hi, this is so and so from such and such, blah blah blah. It's just people are losing that social skill, and I know this is not completely on the topic, but what that presents to us that we're trying to make friends, that it might be hard. You might have to start online, maybe in your local community, or if you're, depending on the size of your town's Facebook group, and people are talking about this and that, you can introduce yourself, and it's doable. You just have to be creative, I guess, because I've reached out, I'm a member of a couple groups here in town, but I found them on Facebook, but now it's a face-to-face once a month meeting that I have with a couple different groups, and it's a way I can start socializing, and it's all local. So there's ways to do it. It's not easy, and maybe if you're one of those people that doesn't have those social skills, just practice. Hopefully nobody's going to shoot you for being a jerk, but just say hi to people every now and then, and interact.
One thing that I had done in the past to kind of help myself get out of that position was just to do the most uncomfortable thing that I could possibly do, which was go speak in front of other people. So I did some like live poetry thing one time, and then I attempted some stand-up comedy one time, and then when I was working my first, I guess, adult job after getting out of college, I did have to go present technical information to people and from research that I was doing. And my God, the first time I did it, I think I probably sounded like a nervous wreck. Like, very barely, there were words coming out of my mouth, but I don't know if they were coherent at all, or if I was just trembling inside and just trying to make something happen. But doing that, and then actually the podcasting thing was another way to kind of get myself to where I could start to be more like that. One thing I did realize, here's one thing that you can realize, is that nobody cares what you like. Pretty much nobody cares about you looking like a goofball or you looking silly or whatever. And you're putting that on yourself, because everybody's worried about their own stuff. They got their own stuff going on. They're not spending any time giving mental energy to, think about what this one person did, and just like think about you all the time. Like, nobody's thinking about you. That's like one thing that finally clicked in my mind, which was like, nobody's thinking about you. Just do your thing, man.
Yeah, I did that. I joined Toastmasters, which is a public speaking group. Groups like that, even like improv or comedy, stand up, open mic nights. Even if you're a musician, and you've never performed in front of people. Poetry nights. The cool thing about that I've found is those communities are really supportive of people that do that. They all afterwards, they, hey man, good job. It's not like, don't invite that dude again. It's not like that. It's not like that. They're very supportive. It's a lot of supportive people, because they go to those places to learn how to get better, and they want to support people. They know how important it is to your confidence to be supported. So yeah, don't be afraid to do stuff like that either, for sure.
I think Logan just naturally has the gift of gab. I don't know, but Logan could probably make friends with just about everybody, I think.
Sure. But
what? You kind of cut out there.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's okay, man. When you get to a better spot, we're good. But anyway,
I was gonna say that I think kind of in our group, in my mentality at least, it's I'm very kind of conscious or thinking about the not wanting to get into some kind of groupthink mentality, like very much like an individualist, and so sometimes I guess that can get in the way of cooperating with others. I guess I could say that. But
yeah, well, I was kind of thinking along those lines when I knew what this topic was going to be, and I'm kind of like you, Greg. It's like, because and I only say that because from my experience, every time I've gone all in and drank the group's Kool-Aid, it never turned out well. So there's always going to be a part of me that I reserve, and I'm not, I'm not going to go, well, since I disagree, I'm leaving the group. It's just, I just won't say anything, and I'll just reserve that for myself. I'm not going to criticize somebody. I'm not going to say you're wrong. I'm just not going to say anything because, I have to reserve something for myself, because we're all individuals. We have to make up our mind. We can't allow a group to make up our mind. Obviously, that's insane. But we do fall into that group think, though, sometimes. It happens in politics all the time, right? And we don't even have to talk about politics. It could be organic gardening, and there's the purist that is like, oh man, if you use that, you're failing. You're doing it wrong. It's like, so yeah, we have to guard against the group think and just kind of like be open. But I don't think if you do it properly, it shouldn't get in the way of making friends or expanding a community or joining a community. It's just, you just know to keep part of that to yourself, that I reserve the the right to make up my own mind about certain things. And
right.
And that's fine, and that's healthy. That's what logical, rational people do. And the thing is that might only be 10% of what the group thinks or the group talks about, but look at that 90% that you're learning and you're gaining from that group or community. That 10% shouldn't negate all the good things that you're learning. You may have a disagreement over whatever. I'll occasionally use and I'm not and I don't use it in the pasture on my cows, but in my garden area, when I get too much Bermuda grass and it drives me crazy, I'll pull out the Roundup and kill that shit. I'm sorry. It's just too much freaking work for me to keep digging it up year after year, and it just grows back, So
Right.
I'll nuke it, and it's like, well, you're a bad person. It's like, well, I'm not drenching my fields in it, and I'm not using it every day. It's a border on the sidewalk, or whatever, right? It's not. I'm not nuking everything with it, and that's just a small thing. There's some people that would take offense to that and say, "Oh, you're one of those Roundup people."
Yeah. It is very difficult to become a purist in any one thing, and to, like, when you go to you have to be a total purist, I guess, and pass your judgment on others, I guess. It's like, then you really get, like, pushed away.
Well, there's two groups that come to mind when I think of that, and that's not so much any day, but 5-6 years ago, pre-COVID, it was CrossFitters, man. Jesus Christ, that was a religion. The other group is vegans. It's like you can't talk to them about anything. It's the old joke is, I've seen it, the memes many times. It's like, Dad, how can you tell if somebody's a vegan? Don't worry, son, they'll tell you.
They'll tell you, yeah, in the first 5 minutes of talking to them.
Right. So you don't want to be that guy, Nobody wants to be that guy. But, when you learn something new, you do get passionate about it and you want to share it with people. And that's okay. Just, make sure it's not the only thing you can talk about, It's got to broaden your horizons a little bit. But yeah, I know this is a little bit different topic than we normally talk about here, but I think it's super important. It's super important.
Yeah. A lot of times, you can, I know for me, as being more of a naturally introverted person, if I strike up a conversation with somebody, I tend to, like, ask them questions and just let them talk, and then, listen, and then figure out, oh, well, that's interesting. Could you tell me about that in the conversation? And that's I think you win a lot of people over doing that, because, like,
yeah,
a lot of times people want to talk, and they have a lot that they want to share, and not a lot of people will actually genuinely listen. So
not when they didn't ask for it, they usually won't listen.
Right.
I didn't realize we were going to go 20 minutes on this subject. Jeez, is the guy ever going to shut up? Guilty as charged. That happens to me from time to time, but I try not to do that. Try not to get too excited about what I talk about and then, turn people off, but it's okay.
I know I can do that, because if it's a subject that I'm really interested in, I'll probably, sometimes I can really talk somebody's ear off about it, but I try to do my best now to sit back and ask more questions and kind of gauge where people are first, and then kind of work with them from there. But yeah, I was a very, in one point in time, very rigid in kind of my thinking, and, like, maybe cutting myself off from certain people by being, I want to stick to my principles and stick to the principles of what I believe in. And that came very much apparent during the whole COVID thing, because, I really didn't want to see the world go down that path, and wanted to say is I spoke up quite a bit during that time, and it really it kind of ostracized me from anyway, a lot of people that were close to me, that especially my family, that I did probably sound like an asshole, a total asshole, but I was like, I did not want to see the world going down this path, and wanted to say, hey, there's something fishy going on here. I don't think that this is all that we're being told. And can you see that with me? Can you work with me on that, I guess? But, I didn't come across that way. But but yeah, I don't know. I guess from that, I can see how, it's more important for people to see your actions and to see what your actions are doing, and that you really have love and care for other people.
Right.
I truly care about humanity. Like otherwise, I probably wouldn't be doing any of the stuff that I'm doing right now, doing these podcasts, and maybe I'd be trying to live on the grid and becoming a hermit guy and still living out in the woods. If I truly didn't care about anybody, I'd just be, off doing that. But I really care about, you know, humanity and seeing humanity thrive. So that's why I talk about this stuff and try to get it out to as many people as I can, because I really do think that that humanity is, worth us striving for something that could be better. I don't think we'll ever have anything that's like the Garden of Eden on this planet, a utopia, And in fact, if somebody is speaking of a utopia, I'm very leery of it, because that all these things will be solved in some magic fashion, and if only we implement these certain controls over you, that we'll get to the utopia, you know. So, and a lot of times it is that kind of thing, is like, we can get to utopia if you allow these controls to be put over you. So,
Right.
So,
There's things I think that, we talk about meeting people and forming a community, or at least attempting to reach out and form a community. Maybe we won't be successful, maybe we will. But and it's common sense though. It's like you just find a common point to start from. Somebody,
you like cars or something.
you like cars, or you're at Walmart and there's a lady standing there. Is like, they're out of bell peppers again. They're out of bell peppers. And I said, well, I grow bell peppers. I have some extra. Would you like some? Really? I've not done that, but I'm just saying that would be an instance where you find, it's like building a business, is find a need that's out there and fill it, right? Fill it with a product that you create or manufacture or whatever, find somebody. And there's people that, I run across a lot of people even in my local Facebook group. They're like, well, does anybody sell whole or half beefs here? It's like, they just don't know. They don't know where to go. And there's people looking for, believe it or not, whatever it is, your product or service, there's people out there that want it. You just haven't found them yet. There's people that want things. I'm sure Logan, who offers his services, there's tons of people out there that want what he does, and then but they don't know how to get a hold of him, or don't even know it exists, right? And it's like, that's the problem. You got to finding those people that have a need, and hopefully maybe build a little bit of community around that. Logan's back.
Now I do want to play a little bit of the paranoid voluntarist, or libertarian here, which is like, yeah, some people might be under a certain type of mind control by the propaganda with the news and their entertainment and their sports and politics and everything like this, to almost become like anybody that's attempting to wake you up from that is your enemy. And it's like the scene in The Matrix where he's talking about, they're walking down the street, and Neo gets distracted by the woman in the red dress, and then he looks back and there's an agent with a gun pointed at him and saying that, basically at all these people are plugged into the matrix, and that they're part of, basically they're mind controlled in a certain degree, to see you as the enemy. And so I don't know, we've talked about it in some of the conferences and things I've gone to, is that it really is like the way to win people over in that regard is by being that light for the community. But I think you also need to beware that there are people that could betray you at some point. And I don't know, I'm playing a little bit of devil's advocate there with that, because I do think by showing your goodwill to others and building goodwill back at you, that if something were to go wrong, that you would be seen as a great asset for the community. And the best thing to do would be to get people to come together. So am I just in kind of thinking in a paranoid fear state there? And if you get in that fear state, does that get reflected back on you? Or if you're in more of that giving abundance mindset, that kind of world is reflected back at you? I don't know what do you guys think about that?
No, I 100% agree with that. I mean, you can't operate out of fear too much, and that's kind of when I started out about the big concentric circles. Unfortunately, in the communities that we spend time in, sometimes the driver is fear. I mean, Jack does a good job, but a lot of it is some of it's, well, a good portion of it's fear-based. It's like, this is going to happen, be prepared, I've warned you before. I mean, he uses language that, I don't hold it against him. That's his audience, and he can do what he wants to with it, but I mean, you've gotta, and he does positive things too. I'm not ignoring that either, but I mean, you've got to get that point where people are attracted out of abundance. And because when you're operating out of fear, you can have the best mentor. If it's Jack, you're still going to make bad decisions based on fear a lot of times, ones that you'll probably regret, especially if it comes to interaction with people and reaching out to people. It's like, that guy down the road, he's got a certain bumper sticker on his car, so I'm not even going to talk to him. It's like, well, don't miss that opportunity. He might be the guy that's the linchpin to make it all work. You never know. So yeah, I agree. You have to try at least take a positive angle on things and not do things because you're afraid that, I mean, that's kind of like that salesmanship 101. It's like, you got to get through all the no's before you get to a yes. And it's like, you got to keep making those phone calls and making those contacts and getting those no's, because eventually somebody's going to say yes, right? And it's like, and if you're the kind of person that your personality can't handle somebody saying no to you, you're in the wrong job, because that's what the majority of it is, right? So that's kind of the same thing with what we're doing. It's like, you might have people that aren't completely enthused about what you do, but don't take it personally, and just keep trying to find those people, because they're there. We know they're there. We found each other. We know those people are there. You just have to keep looking for them.
That's a good point. Logan, are you back?
Yeah, I'm back. Sorry if I'm going to derail the conversation here, because I was driving through the backwoods butt crack of Alabama here. And, but, something that was brought up, I think it was several minutes back by John, and he just lightly touched on it again. But, the whole thing of agreeing on everything and, drinking the Kool-Aid with your different groups and everything. It's really easy to focus on differences when it comes to other people rather than focusing on things that you have in common. I've always noticed that I can't speak for other religions, but in Christianity, most people will spend the majority of their time arguing over the 10% that they disagree on rather than the 90% that they do agree on. Or even if they only agree on 10%. If you've got several Christians together and they can all agree on love your neighbor rather than loving your neighbor, they want to talk about some kind of BS that's, not consequential to anything that's good for anybody. Same thing with politics, or organic farming, whatever it may be. Like John said, don't get focused on the bumper sticker that somebody has. Me, I'm completely out of politics. You know what? I have people that are really good friends of mine that think that Trump is the devil, and there's people that think he's the second coming. And I disagree with both of them. But there's still there's plenty of things that we have in common. That I'm not going to let something like that get in the way of me being able to build community, friendships, relationships with people, so that I can meet my goals. And that's the thing. If you're looking for people that are into freedom, at least find a flavor of freedom. Some people may be like the guys that Francine was talking about. We don't like all that healthy stuff. Yeah, but do you like firearms? Why, hell yeah, I love firearms. Well, there you got something. Do you like Bitcoin? Yeah, I like Bitcoin. Do you like making your own clothes? Do you like storing up food or water? There's plenty of things to find common ground with people, and you've got to focus on that rather than I'm looking for 40 other cult members that are just like me.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. Find areas of common ground with the folks that are around you and cultivate relationships, because really that's what the game is really about dividing us all. And once we're all divided, that we can't work together in any regard, then we're a lot easier to the predators can pick off the individuals more than a giant group. And that was actually one thing that was talked about when I was at Exit and Build was when you do see animals in larger groups, there's protection with the large groups. So the strength in numbers, you do have strength in numbers. So rather than isolated individuals. So yeah, it really is good to cultivate relationships around us and figure out the best way that we can do that. And wherever you are, building goodwill. And I do like what Logan said about having a servant's heart, and reaching out and saying, hey, if there's anything I can help you with, I've got whatever these kind of skills, and I can help you out. Just let me know, and we're there for you. I'll be there for you as your neighbor, and wherever you land, just figure out how you can be a light and an example for those people around you, and do your best to spread goodwill. But I do want to caveat, and I do want to add one caveat to that. Like, I do think we talk a lot about okay, peace, love, kumbaya a lot, but I do think it is important to do stuff like train in self-defense and have the ability to defend yourself if things get a little hairy. Like, it's good to think okay, everything's going to be peaceful, but I think there will be times when it's not. And I do think it's important to not be a pacifist. And that's what I think about. I just want to add that in there.
Yeah, I think you know, because I'm thinking, you know, I'm really going to try to, you know, this next year start forming a little bit more local group for me, you know, but I think, you know, from what we've talked about, you can't have these hard and fast. Well, if you're, you know, if you're raising grain-fed beef, then you can't be part of our group, you know, or if you're a vegan, you can't be part of our group because, you know, I mean, you've got to be aware that people are going to be different. But I think there are certain things, like you said, it's like, well, you know, I'm not going to say you can't be part of our group, but you might be offended to some of the discussions we have when we talk about firearms or whatever it might be, right? You know, and it's like, you're welcome, but just be aware that, you know, we're not doing this because we don't like you. This is just commonly held beliefs that, you know, and those beliefs should be important to the goals of that community, right? You know, it shouldn't be some stray, you know, whatever it might be. You know, if you're a food-based, you know, community, and that's what you base your community on, it should be those issues, and it shouldn't be, you know, firearms. It really shouldn't have much to do with it, but, you know, if it does, fine. But yeah, finding commonality and, you know, and let people be people. Don't, you know, it's not going to be you know, I tend to try to convince people over to my side the way I think when it comes to my farm, but that's only on my farm. You can do whatever you want on your farm. I mean, I'm not offended that you spray poison on your field. I'm just not going to eat your meat. Okay. You know, it's fine.
Yeah.
You know, you may be doing 10 other good things for your farm, and that's the one bad thing you do. Well, I'll take that rather than just not have anybody there at all. Right. You know, you got to figure out where those fine lines are and be able to sleep at night.
All right. So let's wrap. We're at an hour here. Let's wrap it up for tonight and go around and let people know where people can find you and any kind of closing remarks that you want to make about the community and fostering relationships.
Yep. John Tajan. I'm at Soul Survivor 78 on X. I recently changed my name to Grass Farmer John instead of Farmer John. So if you follow me and can't find me, that's what happened to me. So awesome.
All right, Logan.
So yeah, you can find me on YouTube, Hideaway Homestead, and if you email me, I have my email at hideawayhomestead@gmail.com. And just recently had my wife open up. Well, she did it on her own. I didn't inspire this at all, but she's got an Instagram page for us, Hideaway Homestead. Also on Mixed there, that she's starting to take over. So should have some high quality stuff coming out on that. So yeah, check us out on Instagram.
All right, cool. Yeah, I'll make sure I'll put that in the video description. Logan's new Instagram there. And then I'm Greg Dowd. This is the Tinker Tribe, and I do podcasts. I do some content from some of the conferences and things that I've gone to, as well as some of the projects I'm working on. So if you like this stuff, you like the conversations, check us out and subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment in the video and let us know how what you do to cultivate relationships in your community. So appreciate everybody. Have a wonderful week, and we'll catch you guys next Sunday. Peace.